Let me tell you the story of the last day of Rome. Not the Rome of the films, the real one, the one that ended on a Tuesday. Well, we don't actually know it was a Tuesday, but the energy was very much Tuesday. A man named Odoacer rides into Ravenna, the capital of what remained of the Western Roman Empire, and nobody stops him. They didn't even pretend to try. He walks into the imperial palace and informs a 16-year-old boy named Romulus Augustulus that his services as emperor are no longer required. The boy's father had made him emperor 8 months earlier by overthrowing the previous emperor and installing his own son on the throne. This was not unusual. It happened constantly. Odoacer is Germanic, Scyrian, specifically. One of the tribes Rome had spent centuries fighting, absorbing, or paying to go away. He had served in the Roman army himself. He deposes the boy without violence, sends him to a castle in Campania with a pension, and then does something that tells you everything about Rome in 476 AD. He decides not to become emperor. He sends the imperial regalia, the crown, the robes, 8 centuries of Roman power, to Constantinople in a box. In theory, it was a sign to Constantinople that he was subservient to its authority. In practice, it meant nothing. Odoacer would collect his own taxes, control his own army, and rule as king of Italy. The empire was dead. 800 years, Julius Caesar, Augustus, the Colosseum, all of it, ended by a man who couldn't be bothered to take the crown. Nobody was surprised. The warnings had been coming for centuries. Every sign was visible, documented, and ignored. Let's go through them. Every declining civilization produces the same type of intellectual. Slightly too online, writes very long essays, uses the word civilisational without irony, has strong opinions about birth rates. Annoying. Also, historically worth listening to. Rome had them. A historian named Sallust was writing in the 1st century BCE, 500 years before the fall, arguing that Rome had gotten rich, and getting rich had made Romans greedy, and greed had eaten through every virtue the Republic was built on, the way termites eat through a house. From the outside, the house still looks fine. Inside, it is mostly air. Polybius, writing before him, had observed that prosperity was Rome's most dangerous enemy. That once Carthage was gone, and there was no existential rival left, Romans had nothing left to be disciplined about. Livy wrote about the old Roman virtues, the way people today write about the 1990s, with a nostalgia that tells you those things are already finished. Go online today and you will find Niall Ferguson writing about imperial overstretch, Ross Douthat writing about decadence, Peter Turchin building mathematical models showing that elite overproduction and falling living standards historically precede civilizational collapse, and that the West is currently ticking several of those boxes. The Romans had that genre too. They called it history, taught it in schools, and ignored it completely. In the time of Augustus, the Roman denarius was 95% silver. By the 260s AD, it was 2%. The rest was copper. Each emperor had shaved a little more off, debased it a little further, told themselves they would sort it out later. By the time Odoacer rode into Ravenna, the denarius had ceased to exist as a silver coin in any meaningful sense. Large parts of the Western economy had collapsed into barter, people trading goats and grain, because the coins in circulation were so worthless that merchants had stopped trusting them. The Emperor Diocletian tried to fix this in 301 AD by issuing the Edict on Maximum Prices, a list of over 1,300 goods with a legal price cap attached: bread, wine, wages, clothing. You could not charge more than the government said. Merchants stopped selling. A black market exploded. Violators were threatened with execution. The edict collapsed within 2 years. Diocletian then abdicated and retired to grow cabbages on a farm in Croatia. I am not making that up. $1 in 1913, the year the Federal Reserve was created, has the purchasing power of 4 cents today. The British pound has lost 97% of its value over the same period. Rome debased in secret, emperor by emperor, hoping nobody did the maths. We hold press conferences, use the phrase quantitative easing, and achieve roughly the same result. I will leave it there. By the 4th and 5th centuries, large portions of the Roman army were foederati, Germanic tribal units fighting under their own leaders, on their own terms, for payment and land. Effective soldiers, but not Roman in any meaningful sense. They fought for Rome the way a mercenary fights for anyone, competently and conditionally. The melting pot had gone cold. The foederati were arriving faster than Roman institutions could absorb them, in numbers too large to assimilate, answering to tribal loyalties first and Rome a distant second. In 376 AD, tens of thousands of Visigoths, men, women, children, livestock, carts piled with everything they owned, arrived at the Danube asking to cross. They were not invaders, they were refugees, fleeing the Huns who had been moving west from Central Asia like fire through dry grass. They promised to farm, supply soldiers, cause no trouble. Rome said yes. Then Roman officials extorted them, confiscated their weapons, and traded Gothic children into slavery for dog meat to feed the starving crowds. The Goths revolted. In 378 AD at Adrianople, a flat open field in modern Turkey, a Gothic army destroyed a Roman legion and killed the Emperor Valens. His body was never recovered. The most powerful man in the Western world, swallowed by a battlefield his own decisions had made. Picture it. Roman soldiers breaking formation, Gothic horsemen moving through the dust, an emperor in full imperial armor somewhere in the middle of it, cut off and alone. Rome created the threat it could not survive. The boiling pot had stopped boiling. On the 4th of September, 476 AD, it tipped over. At its height, the Roman Empire stretched from Scotland to the Sahara, from Portugal to the border of modern Iraq. A military crisis on the Rhine took 2 weeks to reach Rome by horseback. By the time a decision was made and troops dispatched, the crisis had been a crisis for a month. Sometimes the problem had resolved itself badly, with nobody from Rome present. Diocletian divided the administration in 285 AD, 2 emperors east and west. Reasonable response to an impossible problem, but it split the empire's center of gravity permanently. The east sat on the trade routes between Europe and Asia. Money flowed through Constantinople constantly. The west was poorer, more exposed, more dependent on agriculture that kept getting disrupted by wars it could not afford to stop fighting. The United States maintains military bases in approximately 800 locations across more than 70 countries. It spends more on defense than the next 10 countries combined. It has also spent the last 20 years losing wars to people in sandals. Rome, at its height, would have understood that feeling exactly. Alaric was not supposed to be a villain in this story. He had fought for Rome, led Gothic foederati under Roman commanders, learned Roman military strategy from the inside. What he wanted was what any ambitious man who has spent his career serving an institution wants: a formal title, recognition, land for his people. Rome kept saying no, not loudly. Rome's particular skill in its declining years was bureaucratic evasion, the promise that never materialized, the negotiation that felt like progress without ever producing anything. Between 401 and 410 AD, Alaric led his army into Italy 3 times. Each time he besieged Rome, picture the city walls, Gothic tents spread across the surrounding hills. Thousands of cook fires burning at night like a second city outside the first. He was not trying to destroy it. He was trying to force a conversation Rome kept refusing to have. On the 24th of August, 410 AD, after every back channel had closed, his army walked through the Salarian Gate and into Rome. 3 days of sacking followed. They took gold, silver, silk, grain. They did not burn the buildings or massacre the population. By the standards of ancient warfare, it was almost restrained, which tells you something about ancient warfare. Alaric left Rome and died of a fever in Calabria later that year. His men buried him in the bed of a river, diverting the water, digging the grave, lowering him in with his treasure, then releasing the river back over him. They killed the slaves who had done the digging so no one could talk. Somewhere under a riverbed in southern Italy, Alaric is still there. He had only ever wanted a title. The Western Empire ran on North Africa, modern Tunisia, Algeria, Libya, the most productive agricultural land in the ancient world. North African grain fed the empire. North African taxes paid the army. Lose it, and the Western Empire was not wounded, it was hollowed out. In 429 AD, a Vandal king named Gaiseric led his people across the Strait of Gibraltar into North Africa. Picture that crossing. Thousands of men on boats and rafts, horses swimming alongside, the African coast on the horizon. By 439 AD, Carthage had fallen. The Western Empire tried to take it back twice. Both attempts failed. After the second, Rome simply could not afford a third try. No African revenue meant no money to pay the legions. No legions meant undermanned borders. Undermanned borders meant raids, disrupted farmland, fleeing farmers, less food, higher prices, cascading, each problem feeding the next. Trade collapsed route by route, port by port, as merchants calculated the risk was no longer worth it. Archaeologists measure this through pottery diversity. The variety of goods available in Roman cities falls off a cliff after 440 AD. The U.S. national debt currently stands at $36 trillion. The annual interest payment alone recently crossed $1 trillion, more than the entire defense budget. Italy, sitting on the actual ruins of the Roman Empire, carries a debt-to-GDP ratio of 140%. Rome thought it was managing too. That is, historically speaking, the most dangerous place to be. Between 455 and 476 AD, the Western Roman Empire had 8 emperors in 21 years. Petronius Maximus lasted 11 weeks before a Roman mob tore him apart in the street. Olybrius lasted 7 weeks. The man was emperor for roughly the time it takes to finish a Netflix series. Behind most of this was a half-Visigoth general named Ricimer, the most powerful figure in the Western Empire for nearly 2 decades, constitutionally barred from being emperor himself because of his barbarian blood. So he made them instead, and unmade them. He had Majorian, arguably the last competent Western emperor, a man who had reformed the tax system, rebuilt the navy, actually started reversing the decline, assassinated in 461 AD because Majorian had become too effective, too difficult to manage. Ricimer preferred emperors he could control over emperors who might fix things. Picture the imperial court in Ravenna in this period, men watching each other for weakness, writing letters to Constantinople to ask permission for decisions that should take an afternoon, navigating intrigue so pointless that when Odoacer arrived in 476 AD, the honest response was probably relief. Britain has had 5 prime ministers since 2016. Liz Truss lasted 45 days, ahead of Olybrius by roughly a week, though the economic damage she managed in that time was arguably more concentrated. Italy has had 67 governments since 1946. At this point, Italian governmental instability is less a crisis than a constitutional aesthetic. In 312 AD, Constantine saw a vision before a battle, or said he did. Whatever happened on that road, he converted to Christianity, made it the favored religion of the empire, and changed Western history in ways still being argued about today. Edward Gibbon's argument, written in the 18th century, was that Christianity had softened Rome, redirected the civic energy that built the legions toward the afterlife, accumulated vast tax-exempt church landholdings that drained a treasury that could not afford it, consumed political energy in theological disputes that could have gone toward defending the Rhine. It is a compelling argument. Then you have to deal with Constantinople. The Eastern Empire was just as Christian, devoutly, intensely, sometimes violently Christian. It survived until 1453. 1,000 years after the West collapsed, Constantinople was still standing. It fell eventually to Ottoman cannons battering its walls for 53 days. That is a different story entirely. And then there is Alaric himself, Christian. The man who sacked Rome was a Christian sacking a Christian city. Many of the Vandals who took North Africa were Christian. The barbarians who dismembered the Western Empire had largely absorbed the religion of the empire they were destroying. We do not know if Rome would have survived without Constantine's conversion. History does not run controlled experiments. Anyone who tells you with certainty that Christianity did or did not cause the fall is telling you more about their own opinions than the evidence. The question is worth asking. The certainty is not on offer. Leave it open. The closed ones are never as interesting. 8 warnings. 8 signs spread across centuries. The writers wrote about it. The coins showed it. The army reflected it. The borders announced it. The treasury confirmed it. The emperors embodied it. And above all of it, the question of God, still unanswered. At every stage, Rome looked at the evidence and decided things were probably fine. Rome was not destroyed by people who did not understand what was happening. It was managed to death by people who understood perfectly, who debased the coins because they needed money now, hired the foederati because they needed soldiers now, killed Majorian because they needed control now. The long term is always an abstraction. The short term is always on fire. Rome chose the fire, every time, until there was nothing left to burn. You have been watching previously on History. The episode was Rome. The warning signs were visible. They always are. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.